Hi, Kemani. It's me again, Mrs. Brown. I hope you're doing well. Today's story is called Don't Pick Brian by Anne Harth. Don't pick Brian. He's afraid of the ball. Brian heard the whispers. His face felt warm. He shuffled his feet. Janie, Peter pointed at. Janie skipped over to stand with Peter's team. Theo, Amy said. You're with us. Theo stood behind Amy. The group of kids waiting grew smaller. Soon Brian stood alone. Brian, you're on Amy's team, Mr. Rich said. Okay, listen up. We're doing something different today, Brian sighed. What now? Today we will run relay races. Brian heard some groans. Running? It had to be better than softball. Line up, teams, Mr. Rich said. Amy stood at the front of their line. Everyone wanted to be first. Brian was last. Mr. Rich pointed to the other side of the field. Do you see that orange cone out there? Everyone looked. Everyone nodded. When I blow this whistle, you can start. The first person runs around the cone and back here. Tag the next person in line, then that person will go. The team that finished first wins, Mr. Rich. Mr. Rich lifted his weight. Got that? Everyone nodded. Ready? Mr. Rich raised the whistle to his lips. Brian stood on one foot and then the other. Amy and Pete took off. Go, Amy! Run, Peter! Peter was faster. He raced around the cone and headed back. Amy wasn't far behind. They pounded back to the start. Peter tagged the next person. Amy tagged hers. The next two raced away. Brian felt his heart beat faster. There were only 5 people in front of him. Could he do this? Would he lose it for his team? Brian would run against Janie. She was fast. The kids shouted and yelled. Brian was quiet. There were only 2 people to go. Theo was in front of Brian. He was ready. Theo took off. He raced around the cone and headed back. Peter's team was still ahead. Brian's stomach hurt, but he was ready. Theo pounded toward him. Brian held out his hand. Theo slapped it. Go! He shouted. Brian went. Janie was ahead. Her braids flew behind her. Brian dug his feet into the ground. He ran as fast as he could. He looked up. Janie seemed to be closer. Brian ran harder. He raced around the cone. Janie was so close he could almost touch her. He ran even faster. I wonder what's going to happen, Kemani. Come on, Brian, his team yelled. They cheered, they clapped. You can do it, Brian. Brian pushed harder. He passed Janie and crossed the finish line. Amy's team wins, Mr. Rich lifted his weight. Now, he said, let's mix up the teams. The kids stood together in a group. Theo and Janie are the new captains. Brian stood in the middle of the group. He heard the whispers. Pick Brian! He's the best runner. Brian grinned. Look at how happy Brian is. He felt good about giving it his all and really trying to race. That was a nice story. I hope you enjoyed it. And you have a nice day, Kemani. Keep reading. Bye-bye.